Welcome to the Good Dudes Grow podcast. My name is Gary Roberts, and I'm your host. For the past couple of years, you've noticed I've interviewed everybody from physicians to sports athletes to anybody who's actually used plant medicine or found ways around substance abuse or basically mental health issues. Being a firefighter for the past 20 years, you start realizing that every day you go on shift for 24 hours, you seem to lose a piece of yourself. That piece never comes back. And over a 20, 30-year career, most firefighters, first responders lose a lot of themselves, and they're no longer the same person as when they first started. For the past 7 years, I've been trying to build something that actually help firefighters overcome mental health issues, help overcome depression, anxiety, substance abuse, everything that can actually be done that's not being done currently. So not medication-wise, we're looking more or less holistic-wise, plant medicine, breath work, movement, nutrition. All of these seem to actually correlate to mental health issues. And that's why we created this podcast, is to bring you information about it. So we've decided to create a little series for first responders, veterans, and any everyday warriors who are carrying invisible scars. We're going to dive into the science, spirit, and stories of transformation, exploring plant medicine, therapy, resilience, and community. Our first episode is called The Courage to Renewal, because healing isn't weakness, it's strength. If you're a first responder, a spouse of first responder, or even know a first responder, this series is something you want to listen to. Maybe even get those who you know to listen to. So please subscribe and join us on this journey to reclaim balance, resilience, and hope. Now let's get to the show.
This is the Good Dudes Grow 2.0. On the Good Dudes Grow 2.0, we're here to let you know the importance of plant-based medicine and psychedelics on mental and physical health. We're bringing you stories of how these medicines have changed lives and can save lives. We want to teach you the healing power of plant-based medicine. This is the Good Dudes Grow 2.0.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. Good Dudes Grow. Again, I'm your host, Gary Roberts. I'm so glad you're with us. Let me ask you guys a question. What if the key to healing trauma wasn't found in just one place, but in a meeting of an ancient wisdom and modern science? Well, that's what we're doing on the next couple of series on the Good Dudes Grow. We created a series called Healing Our Heroes, which explores the pathways that help veterans and first responders not only survive, but truly thrive in their life and even at the end of their careers. From cutting-edge therapies to spiritual practices, we're uncovering what it really means to have the courage to heal. My guests today are Scott and Christina. Scott blends timeless wisdom with modern insight. He's helped leaders, athletes, and creators unlock their true potential and step into lasting transformation. Christina Mendez, she's actually, like me, a veteran firefighter. She's going to give the insight of what we try to do and what our lives are like. And hopefully both will actually encourage some firefighters to reach out if they think they need help, or if they're actually looking for help, they can actually reach out to us and we can guide them in the right directions. Big disclaimer, I always tell everybody else, this is not medical advice. We're actually here just to give educational information, so don't take this as medical advice. If you are feeling something, please dial 911 or 811, the Suicide and Crisis Hotline, and get some real help. Scott, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
How about you, Christina?
Doing really good, thank you.
And I'm glad to have both of you on the show today because, like we were talking earlier pre-show, we're trying to educate some of us first responders because we're difficult people to deal with, as Christina knows, about different stuff with mental health. And the fact is, some major departments still don't believe mental health is actually real in the fire service, and it is coming to a point that we need to describe what type of symptoms may or may not actually be towards mental health and lead people in the right direction. So let me ask you both this question. What does the phrase, the courage to renewal, mean to both you personally? And why is it an essential first step for firefighters and first responders? Scott, let's start with you.
Okay, great. I think that's a great question. The courage for renewal, most people think, of course, you guys are heroes. It's a joy to be with you. You're the people that have the courage to go in and deal with things that the rest of the world just doesn't want to or can't face or can't deal with. So that courage up front to deal with the world the way it is definitely has an impact on you. I know from my experience in dealing with people with trauma of over 100,000 people that everything builds up. And as it gradually builds up for people, you have an experience, then you have another, then another. All of a sudden, you start become distant from yourself, distant from others, distant from everything. There becomes a sense of displacement, but it's subtle and gradual enough, although there's some shockers in there, that you almost don't notice it. It's kind of like the story about boiling a frog. You know, you put it in and you gradually turn the heat up and it doesn't notice it until it gets almost crisis time. So it takes real courage to say, wait a second, I have something I want to deal with. I don't feel connected to myself, to my partner, to my husband and wife, to my kids, to my community. I'm starting to feel a little bit separate and alone. And it takes courage to say, this is going on with me. I've noticed when everybody I've dealt with, both with the military and first responders, there's this sense of being a rugged individualist and everything's okay. How you doing? I'm fine. How you doing? I'm fine. Well, isn't your arm hanging off? Isn't that why you came in the hospital? No, I'm fine. It's like, no, you might be experiencing things that say you're not fine. So I think the first part is really recognizing that something's happening. The second part is really confronting the big courage for me that I hear out there. And what you said at first, Gary, is there a way to solve this? A lot of in the world, it's like once these things you experience it, you're kind of traumatized for life. And I still see a lot of out there. People are like, but you can't heal trauma. You can't recover from it. Well, I'm here to tell you, I've spent a lifetime, the last 40 years dealing with this. And yes, you absolutely can renew. You can come back. It's hard to do it as an individual. It takes a community. But we can heal and come back from trauma, including repeated trauma and everything we see. So I think it takes courage to reach out and to confront that in ourselves. But, you know, as Christina will tell you, and everybody I've worked with will tell you, once you do, you have the experience, oh, I'm not alone. The hardest part was just reaching out and confronting something's going on with me. Can I heal it? And who do I reach out to?
Exactly. Christina, you're like me. It's really hard for us type A personalities who see everything, you know, on a different scale than most people ever see in their lifetime to actually reach out to somebody. What was that? What was the first step, or how hard was it for you in the beginning? And did it take multiple times to actually take steps to ask for help?
Yes, it did. I had just gotten to a point in my life where I started feeling like I was drowning, like I was not 100% there for everyone, my daughter, my partner, my parents, my family, and just the awareness of something's not right, like and you know, like you said at work, like it's kind of burned into our brains to just deal with it and keep moving forward and not really addressing it. Just kind of put yourself on the back burner. You know, there's more serious things to tend to right now, and so just the awareness that we need to start taking care of ourselves before it's too late, before we hit that critical critical time in our lives. So it just speaking up, reaching out to other individuals that you trust, and like you said, like building that community with someone, just knowing that you're not alone. You're not alone. There are others going through the same thing. They probably don't have the courage to speak up also.
Exactly. That's what I realized, especially in our department. We can have the peer support and organizations are wonderful. They're coming along. They're starting to learn. They're starting to adapt a little bit more. They're being a little bit more aspect of it. But I was saying this, and again, we said it earlier. I've realized that I'm not the same person when I started 20 years ago. And I take that probably because, and I know it. I know it. I tell my wife all the time, and it's every time you go out and save someone or do something, every shift, it seems to take that little piece from you and you don't realize it. And that's the biggest thing about the mental health in the first responder community, is because it's not like the military community where they go for a 4-year stint. And you've seen this in movies. They know what they're going to get into. They basically know what they're going to see. When we sign on the dotted line for an 18 to 30-year career, we don't know what we're going to see, but it's guaranteed that we will see something. And it could be multiple times in a 24-hour period. And that's what most people do not understand. Most people don't understand that we're doing this for 30 years. It's not a 4-year stint, that if there's no wars, I won't see anything. We're guaranteed to see something. And I've actually had many people that I've seen get hired, get their first real bad accident, car accident or medical call, and then never come back because they were not ready. Doesn't matter how much training you've seen or how much work you've done on dummies, no matter how much they say in your school you're going to see that, until you see that first part where, you have a kid in the back of the car screaming and mom's plastered up against the dashboard. You don't know what you're going to see. And that's the reality. And that takes that small piece of you every day and it removes you from you. And we need to be cognizant of that. We as first responders need to understand that we're not trying to scare those who want to get in the industry. We're not saying don't get in the industry because, guaranteed you're going to get PTSD and then, chances are you're going to commit suicide. But you have to be cognizant that the stuff that you will see will take a piece of your soul away from you. And you have to understand that. And if you could stop that from happening, from understanding it, by building community and everything else, it'll help you. Because like you said, many first responders, like Christina says, we are trained to suppress our emotions.
Yes.
We stay mission ready all the time, highly vigilant. Even when we get aft shift, studies show it takes 24 hours before we actually able to come down. Well, we only got 48 hours to relax. So that 24 hours where you're still high and mission ready, you're now slamming it against your kids, against your wife, against your family or anybody else that's around you, because you're not used to actually coming down until, the next 24, you're 48. And what happens then? You got to go back on shift. So, it's really hard. But how does this type of training, what type of training can we do to help heal from trauma? Won't make it so hard on us to actually understand this aspect of us. What do you think, Scott?
Well, that's a great question because, like you said, traditionally there's been some pathways for people to go, but the traditional systems often fall short. They tend to be either inaccessible to us. I talk to a lot of veterans and they're like, good luck getting into the VA, anytime soon. And there's a lot of programs that get cut. There's opportunities that go away. And then some of them are so overly clinical, they really don't speak to people like you and me, Gary. They want to put us in a really intense psychological model. And the problem with those models is they're really useful for understanding. It's one thing to understand it. It's another to experience it and transform it. And so a lot of what happens is you get it categorized. Oh, you've had this kind of experience. Well, naturally, you're going to have this, but it's all conceptual. We find in our training that, and, psychology is moving this way a lot right now, that our experiences are embodied. When we see something or have to deal with something or make decisions that are tough, we not only do it intellectually, but we do it with our heart and we do it with our bodies. And that trauma, that upset, that emotion, it turns out we have receptors all over our body. People used to say, I have heartache. Well, we've now validated you have a whole set of nerve clusters by your heart that have receptors, and your vagus nerve goes up to your head. So as a result, all of this is embodied, and just talk therapy doesn't seem to work. We need more. So one element is the community. I think Christina said it, and I bet you experienced that with your daughter, kind of feeling like I'm separate and all alone dealing with this. Even though I know intellectually I'm not the only person dealing with it, your experience is you're all alone. And that's tough. So there's a particular way to have people experience other people in community where we're here to support and help each other. Naturally, people, Gary, like you and Christina, are off the charts on the caring and empathy meters. We care, we feel. That's why we're in this business. We want to help people. And we're the people that experience it most deeply, which makes it sometimes difficult to talk, because sometimes when I first started dealing with police officers and sheriff's department, when I worked with them, they had no words for what they saw. Or I'm dealing with people coming back from Afghanistan. They'd look at me and go, and I'd go, okay, let's look at what you saw. Then what was your experience of that? And it really took something to have people communicate it in a way that other people went, exactly, that's my experience. Then there's the second part, which is transforming it. How do we fully experience it and then be able to let it go rather than hold on to it? It took me a long time, because every time I work with people, I would take on their upsets, their traumas. I would feel it, which is natural. But instead of it passing through me, it would kind of stick with me. And I think that's that 24 hours. It does not go away. You are amped, your body's amped, and there it is. And then it kind of fades off. So you never really get to process it. So part of the training is, you could say it's spiritual in a sense. Now, when I say spiritual, most people think all sorts of things. What we mean by spiritual is a sense that you are connected to something bigger. We all have had the experience with our husbands, wives, partners, with our children. There's some experience of connection that's more than just, well, here's me and my son, and we're in a room. There's this connection like there's no barrier. People aren't trained to find that and look for it. And as we deal with the spiritual aspects, like fulfilling your purpose and serving people, being able to connect more and more to people from your family, to other first responders, and ultimately to the world. Like the universe has some intention that we're here to help and do good. The world is actually benevolent. It's headed in the right direction. That goes a long way to getting rid of the experience of being separate, alone, and somehow something's wrong here. We're actually part of the solution. We're actually the people that are the heroes, making things better. And it's time for the universe to make it better for us too. So that's where the spiritual element comes in. It's not that California kind of woo-woo kind of thing. It's literally you feel the connection. And we all feel that with some people. We just need to widen and get some skill in experiencing that connection.
Exactly. Christina, what do you think?
I absolutely agree with that. There's no like one box fit, to put everybody into. Everybody's experience is so different. And just within my shift, my station, there have been several other firefighters and officers that they prefer connecting with their own, like their own community, their own network, not a complete stranger that has no idea where they're coming from or what they've been through. Like, it's really hard to open up to somebody who's not been in your shoes. So I mean, there's a level of comfort amongst our own. You don't want to tell your deepest and darkest secrets, to somebody you have zero connection to, who's not, on that same journey. So I 100% understand.
Yeah, exactly. And you know it from being in the firehouse. The firehouse, we can solve mostly anybody's problems. That kitchen table becomes the round
Right.
table of the universe. So if nobody's ever sat around that table and has no idea what's going on, it's kind of hard for you to leave that table and then go to some other table that nobody knows what's going on and tell those same stories. And one of the things that I've realized through the last 6 years, investigating different mental health aspects and trying to understand is that, as Christina and I understand, every medical problem has a sign and symptom. Well, mental health has no signs. Everybody has a symptom and it's all different. And I think that's what a major part of why departments are not seeing it, because they're all about money, insurance. If it's not in this box, I can't check this box, can't check that box, then it doesn't quantify as a medical issue. You know, I think I read a couple of months ago, somebody in Boston, Massachusetts, he's been fighting his department for over 3 years to get his benefits because he had 10 different psychologists said he had PTSD, but the department doesn't believe it. You know, I had somebody on my podcast that was actually a firefighter in Colorado. He left and he had to fight his department for a year for his benefits because they're not able to have signs. Okay, stuffy nose, cough, this. It doesn't check those boxes because we're all different. We all have a different symptom. Like I noticed that mine are basically, I'm normally an angry individual, but I can control it. But my patience and short fuse seem to be getting shorter and shorter. And that is basically one symptom of, your career might, it's slowly getting to you. So you don't want to pop off or seem insensitive like you have no empathy. You're just dealing with that every third day, that when it comes to like your normal life, it becomes like a normal thing. And that's how you see people change. And we got to understand that there's no real signs and everybody's different in symptoms. And we got to teach our departments that. We got to teach our fellow firefighters that, hey, listen, if you're feeling in a funk because you got issues with your family or something else and you're getting depressed and you're getting angry, you're getting all jammed up, that may be time to reach out to somebody, talk to somebody, find something that can do it. And like you said, Scott, talk therapy is great, but if you're talking to me and I don't know who you are and you don't know what I've been through, then it's very difficult for us to have a one-on-one communication.
That's right. That's why, in traditional, what they call Rogerian therapy, which is what we think about, how do you feel and all that, it takes 2 years to get people to be connected enough to finally start sharing what's going on. On average, 2 years. Well, we don't have 2 years. Most people don't. And I like how you put that. Doctors tend to want blood panels. Let's send you for a blood panel. It comes back. Oh, we'll tell you what you have. There's no blood panel for this. And, there's a lot of people who bought we used to call it the World War I model. I knew some World War I vets when I was first starting 30, 40 years ago. And one of the jokes about them is they had the decency to come back from the First World War, not say anything about it, and quietly drink themselves to death. I was like, how is that a model? That's just horrible. So I can just be quiet and deal with all my demons by myself. Well, that's never going to work. And so a lot of people still believe that. Like, be tough, be rugged, be an individual. Mind over matter. You can go over it. In a lot of the training that we've done, there's a specific skill set around being able to what we call be with. It's kind of a Buddhist notion of being with something exactly the way it is and exactly the way it isn't. What we mean by that is not adding something to it. Look, it's bad enough the way it is, what we sometimes have to deal with. But we can add something. We can make it mean something. We can personalize it. And when that happens, that's what causes it to stick. So one of the good litmus tests that we have that seems to be very quick is like in your relationship. If you notice it's creeping in and you've got shortness, oh, I know I do that. I get short and demanding and critical. Anybody else do that? You come back from something that's very intense and you're like, why is this? Why is this? Why is this? And people are like, dude, chill down. Let the adrenaline go down. But one of the things is that we've trained people in to recognize that that's happening is to close your eyes and remember a time that, like with my wife, when I really was in love with her and she was in love with me and we were just hanging out. What did that feel like? And as you start to experience it, you go, now, what do you feel now? Oh, there's a huge gap. Exactly. You can start to get yourself sensitized to when love is present, when connection's present, when you're as patient as you want to be with your children versus you're upset, you're snippy, you're short, you're demanding. Once you can experience that, then you can go, okay, now I need to go deal with this. But again, the problem is the rest of the world says, here's some medication, it'll help. Here's a little talk therapy, go to a dinner, share about your problems. And it's like, yeah, that's step one. Sharing about it, talking to people, step one. But learning the kinds of tools that have you go, wait a second, what is going on with me? What did I make this mean? What did I wall off? Like you said earlier, Gary, we've all been trained to, in the middle of these things happening, to separate ourselves and be like the observer. And we'll have a reaction to it later because, you can't be in the middle of heart surgery and go, oh my God, it's somebody's heart. That's not going to work. You have to be really straightforward. It's kind of mechanical. But at another level, it's really something to deal with. You've got people's lives in your hand. And afterwards, if you don't process that out and learn the tools to process it out, it tends to stick more. Now, nothing's going to keep everything from sticking. I can tell you after 40 years, every now and then I call my team and I go, okay, I'm stuck with a bunch of crap. Let's process it. But learning those tools made it much more quick and much more effective. And that's why we found some of the plant-based medicine and that stuff to accelerate that process and bring down the walls. So at least we can connect and process that stuff out. So
that's the biggest thing. And that's the biggest thing. There's techniques for all of this.
Yes.
But everybody's stuck on the one technique, which is go talk to somebody, take this medication.
Ooh,
now we've already known that for the last 2 decades or 50 years, they've thrown $50 billion at research and they realized that, this stuff is not really working, but maybe plant medicine or stuff like that will work. Okay, that's great. You did all the studies. Why aren't you implementing it and still staying with the old stuff? I don't want to take a medication. I'm already having enough problems with my emotional issues. I don't want to take a medication that's going to subdue them.
Yeah.
That'll make me like a zombie to where I'm completely emotionally useless.
Yeah.
That's not what I want. And we got to bring to light to the other people that are our first responders friends. There are different modalities, different therapeutics,
right.
more holistic ways that we can do this safely, that you can do it without the medication. So why is plant medicine so misunderstood, and how can you explain its role in healing trauma to someone who's skeptical or fearful, who just doesn't know about it, and we'll say in the fire service, or just a normal person?
That's a really good question, Gary. It sounds dumb, but I deal with a lot of very high-end classical musicians who play in orchestras. And you wouldn't know it, but the audition process is like a journey in trauma. You got a whole panel of experts, and they're judging you every second. 90% of the musicians out there are taking some form of beta blockers or something to deal with it. And when I talk to the musicians, I ask them the same thing you said. Does that help, or does it just mask symptoms? And they say, well, it masks it. I say, but how do you play at that level in an orchestra? They say it's really hard. It's like trying to pick up quarters with mittens on. It dulls my sense of being present to the point where I'm not sure I can play at this level. And I'm sure that's, everybody I've talked to, it's take all sorts of things. It's both helpful, but long-term, you don't quite feel like yourself. So I think, there's a long history of vilifying anything we don't completely understand. It's so funny, coming from the Hindu tradition as I do, there's 5,000-6,000 years of history of these processes, some including plant-based medicine, some not including it. Take a lot of time, but you learn the practices and processes. But as a culture, we seem to have, at some point in the 50s and 60s, discounted wisdom and went with this ultra scientific kind of, if you can't prove this, then it's not working. And I think a lot of people hopped onto it because financially it's very useful to say this drug causes this and this causes this, and we'll use it to treat people. My experience in talking to doctors is they have no interest in people being ill and they want to help them. But the tools that they're left being able to use frequently mask symptoms. So I think it's been vilified and misunderstood. and turned into all sorts of different things, which it's not. And that's been a repeated pattern since the 60s, and they're doing a lot of hardcore research in lots of other areas of the world, and that's one of the biggest areas is first responders and the impact that some plant-based medicines can have on people. Now, of course, it's always a choice, and it's what you want to take on. But Christina can tell you firsthand some of the impact it's had on her. But it has had this kind of weird stigma to it in a way, and that's going away, but not quick enough.
Right, exactly. And Christina, I think the biggest question I think a lot of my viewers or first responders would understand is, what made you decide to try plant medicine? Like, did you try everything else? Was it not working? How did you find it, decide to do it? Because I think if we can give a perspective path on how these people can actually look at, I think we can actually help a lot of first responders make those choices if they want to try these avenues.
Yeah, I had just, like you said, we're masters at suppressing, and I have friends that I've known, and they're firefighters for decades that had no clue. Like, we're so good at pretending everything is okay, that they had no idea I was dealing with some of the thoughts I was going through, just losing hope. They had no clue. They thought everything was a-okay. And just my self-awareness and coming to that realization that, like, everything just started getting really dark. And so I started some type of spiritual journey when I was still working. It was books, podcasts, like you name it. And my fiance had actually started going through this journey. And so I started learning more and more about it. But I had to wait until my career was ending, and I had just kind of reached the end of my rope, and I couldn't hide it anymore. It started affecting my home life, me as a parent, as a spouse, as a daughter. And I was like, I have to do something. I have to do something drastic, like just that buildup. And the more I learned about it through my fiance, and seeing how much it helped him, and just not feeling alone anymore, that that there's other people out there going through similar things, that it's okay. It's
Right.
okay to
And
reach out.
yeah. And that's what I'm looking to try. And I'm going to use Christina as an example, and I apologize for Christina. I don't believe that first responders, well, I know somebody personally at my department, nicest guy in the world, cracked jokes when he came in, super hilarious, funny, always positive, always, uppity. Next thing you know, I find out he took his life.
Oh,
Right.
No
Exactly.
idea why. Nobody could figure it out. I don't think we have to wait till it gets that dark for us to actually look at trying to use some sort of plant medicine. And I think there should be an avenue that we can do that, so we don't get to that darkness, so that we don't create, it's the only hope I have left attitude, that just in case that the plant medicine that I decided to use didn't work. Because if I go to the last moment and I wait and I say, okay, well, this is the last resort, and it didn't work, well, could that be a negative effect on me? That's a whole different story. But if we could create something where every time we get a piece ripped out, we put a piece back by going to do a plant session once a year or something, and take all that year of trauma and put our pieces back together, and then do another year of trauma, putting them back together. You know what I mean? It can create a huge outcome that'll stop firefighter suicide. Hey, listen, Statistics now say 85. There's an 85% chance of me committing suicide and dying by suicide than actually be killed in the line of duty. Those are the stats out there. That is scary. That means there's something going on in the first responder community that nobody's really looking at. That, you know, hey, guess what? You're not going to die saving somebody. You're going to die by yourself. Well, you know, we need to figure that out. What
Exactly.
trauma is often it's not only stored. I always said trauma is not always stored in the mind. It's stored in the body also. You can't have mind and body work differently and expect actually to make a happy outcome out of it. Let's be honest. You know, if you have pain or like you had a bad back, Scott, we said that last time. When you're in pain, you're not happy.
Yep.
So if you're not taking care of your body, then you're not taking care of your mind. And if you're not taking care of your mind, you can't take care of your body. So it's a whole thing that needs to be worked. So there's more therapies than just plant medicine. Plant medicine is awesome, but what other are some traditional therapies that can't work that you think plant medicine can work? Give us a little bit more about the plant medicine aspect of it. I'm going on a tangent now, and I'm going to go down left field for no reason. It's 7 years of building up. Like, I can't believe why we still haven't figured this out yet of why we're still throwing SRIs and pills down people's throat and still saying it's okay to come to work on opiates and you just can't use a CBD compound instead for pain. It just, you know, there's my tangent for this podcast right there. But explain to me how, you know, what practices also help release trauma physically and emotionally that'll help plant medicine come together spiritually and everything else. Scott.
Okay. I was just waiting to see if Christina, I want to give her a chance to answer it, and she could probably say a bit about this too. So that's really, Gary, that's exactly what you're framing up is exactly the thing. We've known things don't work, and we've kind of been ignoring them for one reason or another. And my experience too, in talking to people who have jobs, whether it's the military, whether it's first responders, police departments, how many of you have had suicidal ideation, as we call it? You've had thoughts of killing yourself. And I remember the first time I was training with somebody, and he said, watch what happens. Almost every hand goes up. And you have your first almost moment of trauma because you're like, oh my God, this can't be real. And they're like, welcome to it. This is what we're really dealing with. It was hard to be with. It was very sad because I just couldn't believe there was that much, but it was almost everybody. So then, one of the things we found is like, it's a little like getting injured and working out. Right? There's the intervention, and the plant-based medicines, fundamentally what they do is they allow you to open up and experience the world and the connection to all that's great. And in that, sometimes there's some lessons like you need to take it easy on this. It's almost like a command. It's like, hey, this too shall pass. You're on the right side. Reality is reality. We can't save them all. And you start to, as a group, when the barriers come down, make connections with the universe in a way that you see who you are in relationship to it all. And you're really quite great. Nobody could expect all of this from you. That's great as an experience, but there's a lot of work to do before to start to identify, like I said, what do those symptoms look like? What's the lead up? How do I see it out in my life? What does that look like for me? We have a list of things it could be, but your experience, Christina, is exactly mine. Everyone's different, and everybody has different levels of being able to mask it. I've had those experiences with children as well, where this kid seems really happy, and then they kill themselves. And you're like, how did this happen? One thing we've isolated in that is relationships. You lose a certain amount of what we call triadic relationships, people who know who you are and really are like, think you're great and they're your best coach or they're your best person, frequently grandparents or people who just know you and get you. I mean, we all have limitations, but you know how it is, that person who really sees you and believes you. You lose enough of those people and you're out on your own. And so learning the skill set to cultivate those people, both in yourself, in your family, in your community, in your groups you're in. How do I have those type of relationship? That's all skills that can be taught. So we tend to, as a ministry, we tend to have a lot of pre-work and a lot of integration and post-work, but it's all about training those techniques. Some of them come from Buddhism. Meditation's really popular, and mindfulness, but it turns out that's all really a skill. It's a skill you can learn. And there's parts from the Hindu world as well, and the Christian world as well, the deeper structures of how to connect up with who I am, what my purpose is, and why I'm here on this planet. There's a point to it. It's not just random. And so there's a lot of skills and techniques with that complement it. I think some of the plant-based medicine, like any medicine, like if you're injured, getting a cast on your arm, if you break your arm, is useful. But we all know once you've got that cast off after 6 weeks, now comes the physical therapy. You got to do the therapy. When they replace your knees, it's all about the therapy. And so I think this is that. It's a skill set and practices and developing that muscle to be able to be with what's happening with care and compassion and have it wash through you and be a part of the difference you make rather than get stuck with you and you get stuck with the trauma. Those are all skills. And it takes months to build that. And it takes, like Christina found out, reading books and everything kind of points you in the direction. But just like working with a coach or a trainer, it's kind of, you got to be in the gym doing the work together. That's where it really comes out.
I think Christina, give me a little bit of thoughts on how you went through your plant medicine and how you had to do work. I think individuals like you and I, when we say, they tell us, "Oh, the plant medicine's the beginning, but you got a lot of work afterwards." We're going, wait a minute.
What?
Work's like training. When you say the word training at a fire station, everybody goes and hides. It's like, especially in Florida when it's 100 degree weather, they're like, "I don't want to do work." It's like, "I don't want to train." But it's a different type of work. And it's like you said, Scott, tell me if I'm wrong, Christina, it's like having your own personal trainer or coach. It's not really work. It's more or less you're training yourself to be a better person in the long run, because all these thoughts that you're going to get on plant medicine are stuff that you suppressed over the last 30 years. It's stuff you weren't thinking about, and you're trying to figure out what it all means. Is that correct, Christina?
Yes. Yep. Again, like, I don't want anybody to wait, like 2 decades, before they find that community, that network. And I think, like you said, like the training, it's like just putting yourself in proximity to other people that are going through the same thing, going through the same journey. I mean, we don't always need to be taught, but we need to be reminded. Mm-hmm. Reminded to pay attention, to be still, to work on ourselves, and know that we're not alone. And just having that community, that constant reminder, building those habits. And when it's not just for you, you're doing the work for your family, your community, your coworkers, your parents, whoever. Like, it's not just about you. This is going to affect everyone, and knowing your why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I applaud you, Christina, because I think you're one of the, maybe I say a half dozen people that I've talked to on my podcast that actually have a spouse that also went through it. Mm. And that's a big plus for people. I always tell them, if you're planning on doing this, don't keep it from your spouse. Just let them know you're planning. Talk to them what you're planning. Talk to them about what you're going to go do. Talk about them. Because again, you just spent the last 30 years changing who you were from the beginning. Now you're going to go do something that's going to change you again. Listen, we have enough troubles with divorce and stuff like that. We don't need to keep changing personalities where the wife's going like, "Who the hell are you now?" Mm-hmm. That question comes up a lot for people who did it. So for families of first responders and veterans, spouses and children, how can they be a part of your journey and support it? Christina, what do you think?
I was scared to share it with everybody, but surprisingly, I mean, once they knew what I was going through and why, I wanted to do this, like, I mean, across the board, the people that love you and have always been there for you, they were 100% supportive, and I wasn't expecting that at all. Um, I expected, you're crazy, you don't know what you're getting into, like, but I think once you communicate, what you're struggling with and why you're doing this, you're doing it for yourself, you're doing it for them, like the purpose, like I said, and the why, like
Mhm.
that makes a huge difference in sharing it and in getting that support. Like, who wouldn't want to support you
Right.
getting
Exactly.
Christina,
to your life?
did you have the experience, because we're calling this, the Renewal series, our experience of any transformational mode, whether it's we're having a conversation, a group, and people transform, or they do plant-based medicine, or however you do, it's less about changing and more about a return to yourself, who you were born to be. I mean, one of the smart guys, Aristotle, said that we were born with a purpose. He called it telos. Like an acorn becomes an oak tree. It's just where we're headed. And our experience of those events, whatever transformational event, it's more about stripping off stuff that got added and getting returned to yourself and renewed, as opposed to changed. Was that your experience or not?
Absolutely. It made me realize that it's not about getting, it's about letting, um, letting go of the things that are no
Wow.
longer serving you.
Wow.
That's a good line. Like that line.
That's really well said. So much, one of my friends said a transformational group is like a bad airport. We guarantee we'll lose your baggage. It's kind of like that, if you can let it go and be here now. I think one of the other things is restorative practices. Like for me, Gary and I both live down here in South Florida. Being in the ocean, my mom was an Olympic swimmer. I grew up in the ocean. I have a sailboat. There's something for me about going out and seeing the endless ocean and swimming in it and being a part of it. I know one of my partners, Mitch, goes to the beach every week in the morning because there's something restorative. I know for athletes, actors, other people I coach, we've got to develop some sort of restorative practice. Some of it's just being in nature. Like I'm looking at the background, Christina, and it's really beautiful. When we can connect up with that which is bigger than ours, that kind of renewal practice, and everybody's slightly different, but knowing what that is, what kinds of things restore us, super critical. Because otherwise it's just, I've been through that where you're just panting and getting over your last shift and you're ready to go to the next one. And you're like, I guess it's time to start again, rather than feeling disconnected, connected to your life, connected to the world. Like you were saying at the top, Gary, I think you're right. When you go off to Afghanistan or you go off to war, you take a flight over there or you take a ship over there, and on the way back, you do the same thing. So you have that time to come back, and then you have the time to unplug. But if you're every other day on, I don't know how you unplug. I did that for years, and it just made me crazy.
It becomes a difficult process. Process. So
it's more than recovery. It's renewal.
That's the thing. And I've coached a lot of athletes doing a lot of different things. And my whole process was, it's not about how hard you push. It's about how fast and how good you recovery. So next time you can go back to pushing to your 100%. If you never get a chance to recover, then you're never going to be 100%, and you're slowly going to tick down to the zero. And when it gets to zero, it's not going to be pretty.
That's really great.
Last question, so we can end it on this. Looking ahead, what gives you guys hope about the future of trauma recovery, resilience training, and spiritual healing for our first responders? Scott, let me know. What do you think?
What gives me hope with that is first participating it and seeing that it works. And it's so moving to hear Christina talk about it. And in the presence of herself and the world, things disappear. Seeing it actually work. I've worked with over 100,000 people, and knowing that it works differently with other people to different extents, of course, but knowing that it works and makes that big of a difference gives me hope. And the fact that our culture and society is starting to recognize mental health as a real issue, both with athletes like Coco Gauff saying, I'm having a problem here. That's starting to get, now it's not anywhere it needs to be, but just seeing mindfulness, looking at wisdom traditions in the culture, starting to take a little hold, that gives me a lot of hope.
Christina, what hope do you see for our future, for our first responders with everything that's going on and what you've gone through?
I've seen what it's capable of. And just recently this last week with some veterans and other first responders, and it's unbelievable. And it gives me hope. Meeting and speaking with them and seeing the transformation and looking forward, just that willingness and that courage to say yes to yourself, yes to hope, yes to your life, yes to your family, your friends. I think they call it that sacred yes, just that willingness.
Wonderful, wonderful. I personally see hope in the future that we're not only going to be treating mental health, but we're actually going to find a way to stop it from happening, especially in first responders with 20, 30, 40-year careers, because you're getting younger and younger hirees who are getting hired out of high school, which, they're going to do multiple 20-year stints before they can ever get near retirement or anything else. These are the individuals that now we have to teach about the certain symptoms, now that we can actually get them to stop mental health from happening so that they can enjoy their life. One of the biggest things our department ended up doing was getting something called a life scan, where they scanned our whole bodies, poked, prodded, stuck fingers everywhere, looking for cancer. They found a bunch of cancer. That's wonderful. But you forgot shoulders up. What about that? If we can create something to where we get a yearly, like I says, a yearly trip to a spiritual retreat, to where we can release all the demons we created over a year and then come back and for a renewal, I think is an extremely easy way to stop it from ever developing. Let's be honest. If we can take a year of crap and BS we put ourselves through, get rid of it, and renew, and then start all over again. And so you're starting your career anew every year. When you're ready to retire, you're going to have a wonderful life, and you're not going to piss those off. You're not going to get divorced. Chances of addiction will be lower. This is huge. And I think this is something we really need to start looking at.
Absolutely. Prevention.
Awesome.
Scott, thank you. Christina, thank you. I appreciate you both having my show. I know we're going to talk again about different other topics later on down. I think this was a great first start to the series, and hopefully those who are listening will send it out to their friends, their families, and other first responders, even veterans that are actually looking for more information on what to do about mental health issues.
Right. Thank you so much, Gary.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Hope you enjoyed our first episode in our series, Healing Our Heroes. We have more episodes showing up, but if you're interested in learning more about potentially retreats around the world or in the United States, reach out to us. We can guide you in the right direction, give you the perfect information that will help you make the correct choices to help you with your mental health journey. Have a great day.
If you're still listening to this, that means you gained some type of value. So what we need you to do is leave a review and make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode of The Good Dudes Grow.